The storm was bearing down on Gullhaven when I found my beach house blazing with party lights, strangers dancing on the deck, bass thumping through walls that had held 30 years of family memories, and my daughter-in-law collecting cash payments right there on my porch. She'd forgotten one small detail whose name was on the deed, and that the 62-year-old widow she'd been dismissing as irrelevant had spent 20 years mastering real estate law. Tonight, I wasn't knocking. I was setting a trap. My name is Eleanor Whitaker. Nora to those who've earned the right, and I've spent the better part of my 62 years understanding one fundamental truth. Property law doesn't care about your feelings. It's what kept food on our table when my husband Richard passed, what I built my career on at North Shore Title Services, and what my daughter-in-law Savannah apparently never bothered to Google before she decided to play landlord with my beach house. The first sign something was wrong came 3 weeks ago, a Tuesday morning. Unremarkable, except for the utilities bill that landed in my mailbox like a slap. $847 for electricity, $412 for water. The beach house in Mariners Strand typically ran 60 and 30, respectively, even during the height of summer when Richard and I would spend entire weekends there. AC blasting against the coastal humidity. I called the utility company, thinking it was a mistake. The customer service representative cheerfully informed me that usage had spiked dramatically over the past 2 months' weekend peaks. Specifically, "Looks like someone's been enjoying that beach view." She'd laughed. Except, no one should have been enjoying anything. The house had been sitting empty since Memorial Day, when Lucas, my software engineer son, had promised to check on it monthly, but inevitably got buried in sprint deadlines and deployment windows. I'd been meaning to drive down myself, but my consulting work with the county recorder's office had picked up, and somehow summer had slipped into early fall without a visit. The second sign came from Gladys Hoffman, my neighbour at Mariners Strand for 15 years. Her text arrived while I was reviewing a particularly complex deed restriction. "Nora, dear, didn't know you were renting out the place. Saw folks with suitcases heading in last Saturday. Young crowd. Very enthusiastic about their music choices. Hope all is well." My stomach dropped. I immediately called Lucas. "Mum, slow down," he said. Keyboard clicking in the background, he never stopped working, even during personal calls. "Maybe Gladys is confused. You know how she is." Gladys ran the neighborhood watch for 20 years. "Lucas, she doesn't get confused about strangers with suitcases. I'll look into it this weekend." "Okay, I promise." But I was already pulling up the remote access app for our Ring doorbell. Richard had insisted on installing it 2 years before he died. Paranoid about break-ins even in our sleepy beach town. The footage loaded slowly on my phone, pixelated at first, then sharp enough to see everything a couple in their 30s punching numbers into a lockbox I didn't recognize. Wheeling designer luggage through my front door at 2:15 p.m. last Saturday. Then another group on Sunday. Different people. Same confident entry. Same unfamiliar lockbox. My hands shook as I scrolled back further. 2 weeks of strangers coming and going. The lockbox had appeared 3 months ago, mounted right next to my authentic Gullhaven Driftwood address plaque. The third and final sign revealed itself when I did what any reasonable person would do. I searched for my own address on every vacation rental platform I could think of. Nothing on Airbnb, nothing on VRBO, but on Stayscape, a newer platform popular with digital nomads and experience seekers. There it was, Mariners Strand, Luxe Retreat. Your coastal paradise awaits. Professional photos showcased my home's interior with magazine-worthy staging. the cotton white slipcovers I'd chosen to remind Richard of our honeymoon in Nantucket. The ship's wheel he'd restored himself, hung precisely where morning light would catch its brass fixtures. Even the collection of sea glass I'd gathered over 30 years, arranged in the hurricane lamps his mother had given us as a wedding gift. The host was listed as SR Coastal LLC, 5 stars across 43 reviews. "Savannah is an amazing host," gushed one. "So responsive and accommodating," praised another. The booking calendar showed solid reservations through Christmas at $350 per night, peak weekends at $500. I sat in my kitchen in the main house, staring at photos of my own property being marketed by my daughter-in-law, and felt something cold and precise click into place in my chest. It wasn't rage. Rage is hot, uncontrolled, temporary. This was different. This was the same feeling I'd had when I'd discovered a forged signature on a quitclaim deed back in '97, or when a seller had tried to hide an encumbrance during a title search in 2003. This was the recognition of a violation that demanded correction through proper channels. I pulled up the North Shore County Recorder's database. I still had my access credentials from my consulting work. The beach house deed was exactly where it should be under the Eleanor Whitaker Living Trust. Established 2018, with myself as sole trustee following Richard's death. No liens, no transfers, no recorded power of attorney that would give anyone else the right to rent my property. My phone buzzed. Lucas. Texting. "Mom. Talked to Savannah about the beach house situation. She says she can explain everything. Can we come for dinner Thursday? Please don't overreact." Overreact. I looked at the booking calendar again, calculating if SR Coastal LLC had been operating for 3 months at even 70% capacity. They'd pulled in close to $30,000 from my property, using my memories as their marketing material. "Of course, sweetheart," I texted back. 7:30 p.m. would be perfect. I had 2 days to prepare. 2 days to pull every record, review every statute, and understand exactly how my daughter-in-law had decided she could simply take what wasn't hers. The storm forecast for this weekend was just a coincidence, but I'd learned long ago that in property law, as in life, timing was everything. The Delaware Division of Corporations website loaded slowly on my laptop at 4:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, I hadn't slept well since discovering the listing. SR Coastal LLC was registered 6 months ago. Principal agent Savannah Reed. Formation date coinciding suspiciously with when she'd launched her Coastal Living with Sav Instagram rebrand. The filing was clean. Professional, she'd even paid for a registered agent service. This wasn't impulse. This was premeditated. I methodically downloaded everything. The Stayscape listing's source code revealed metadata timestamps first published 93 days ago. The photos' XIF data showed they were taken on a Thursday afternoon when Lucas had mentioned Savannah was helping check on the beach house. Every review screenshot went into a folder labeled Evidence. The payment structure showed automatic deposits to what the platform designated as a superhost account. By 6A, I'd traced the digital breadcrumbs to Savannah's Instagram, where subtle hints appeared in her posts. "Entrepreneur life isn't easy, but it's worth it." Captioned a sunrise photo clearly taken from my deck. "Passive income streams are key to financial freedom." Babes, under a boomerang of waves I recognized as the view from my bedroom window. Her followers ate it up 3,000 likes, hundreds of comments asking for her secrets. The smoking gun appeared in my email archives. 3 months ago. Lucas had forwarded me a PDF to review some software contract he was considering, but he'd accidentally attached another document, Property Management Agreement, draft. I'd ignored it then, assuming it was something from his work. Now I opened it. The document purported to authorize SR Coastal LLC to manage the Mariners Strand property on behalf of Lucas Whitaker. His signature appeared on page 3, except I knew my son's signature like I knew his childhood handwriting. This was wrong. The L was too looped. The W too narrow. More telling. The document's signature was dated June 15th, but the metadata showed the PDF created on June 18th. She'd forged it after the fact. I drove to North Shore Title Services, where I'd worked for 20 years before retirement. Margaret, my former colleague, didn't ask questions when I requested a certified copy of the deed and a full title history report. Research project, I said, and she nodded knowingly. We'd both seen enough property fraud to recognize the signs. Next stop, Mariners Strand, HOA office. Mabel Carter, the association president, practically vibrated with indignation when I explained the situation. I knew something was off. She pulled out a binder thick with printed emails. We've had 3 noise complaints, parking violations every weekend, and someone reported a portable hot tub. Nora on your deck last month. I sent letters to your mailing address, which Savannah probably intercepted, I muttered, examining the documentation. The HOA bylaws were crystal clear. Rentals under 30 days were prohibited, with fines starting at $500 per occurrence, doubling with each violation. They could force a sale if violations exceeded $10,000 in aggregate fines. We can start proceedings immediately, Mabel offered, eyes gleaming with the particular satisfaction of an HOA president facing a clear violation. Not yet, I said. I need to handle this properly. My next call was to Marisol Grant, my law school friend who'd actually passed the bar while I'd chosen the title industry. She listened to my explanation with occasional uh-hus and one low whistle. Conversion of property, fraud, forgery, potentially identity theft if she used Lucas's information for anything else. Marisol catalogued. The forged signature alone is a felony. The unjust enrichment claim is straightforward. Every dollar she's collected belongs to you. I don't want to destroy my son's marriage, I said carefully. Then what do you want? I thought about Savannah's Instagram post from last week, her and Lucas at an upscale restaurant, captioned, "Celebrating 3 months of our investment property success, teaching him that multiple revenue streams are the path to wealth." Lucas looked uncomfortable in the photo, his smile not reaching his eyes. I want her to understand that property rights aren't suggestions, and I want my house back. Thursday's dinner preparation became my war room setup. I arranged printed copies of everything: the deed, the trust documents, the HOA bylaws, violation notices, the Stayscape listing, revenue estimates, and the forged management agreement with forensic handwriting analysis notes I'd prepared myself. Each document was tabbed, highlighted, ready for presentation. But when they arrived at 7:28 p.m, I served lasagna and salad as if nothing was wrong. "Mum, this looks amazing," Lucas said, hugging me with genuine warmth. He'd lost weight, dark circles under his eyes more pronounced than last month. Savannah air-kissed my cheek, her perfume something expensive and beachy filling my kitchen. "Thanks for having us. Eleanor? Lucas said you had some questions about the beach house." "Oh, I think I have most of my answers," I said, serving generous portions. But I'm curious about your perspective. She launched into her pitch over Caesar salad. The sharing economy is revolutionizing property utilization. That house sits empty 90% of the year. It's literally losing money every day. It's not rented. I've created a sustainable model that covers maintenance, utilities, and generates profit. I'm actually doing you a favor. How thoughtful, I said. And Lucas, you were part of this decision. My son pushed lasagna around his plate. Savannah said it made financial sense. And technically, I'll inherit. Actually, the trust is revocable and has multiple contingency beneficiaries. I interrupted smoothly. But please, continue. Savannah's phone buzzed constantly throughout dinner booking inquiries. She explained, not bothering to silence it. Each notification seemed to embolden her more. I've built something special with SR Coastal. My followers love the authenticity. It's not some corporate rental. It's a real family beach house with history. That's what people pay premium for now. History, I repeated. Like Richard's ship's wheel, the one he spent 6 months restoring in our garage. Exactly, it photographs beautifully, very authentic nautical aesthetic. She said it without irony, without acknowledgement that she was commodifying my dead husband's handiwork. Lucas winced, but stayed silent. Marisol's office smelled of leather and coffee, even at 8 on Friday morning. She'd cleared her schedule after reviewing the documents I'd sent over, her expression shifting from professional interest to genuine concern. The forged signature is bulletproof for prosecution, she said, comparing Lucas's actual signature against the forgery under a magnifying lamp. But I'm guessing you want something more surgical than criminal charges against your daughter-in-law. I want her to face consequences, not destroy my son's life, I clarified. Though after last night's dinner, I'm questioning whether there's a distinction. Marisol pulled up her laptop. Here's what we can do: immediately file for an emergency injunction to cease all rental activity, demand accounting of all revenues collected, and initiate civil conversion claims. The criminal angle stays in our back pocket. Sometimes the threat is more powerful than the execution. And if she's already collected tonight's payment, there's a booking for this evening through Sunday. Then she's accepting money for services she can't legally provide. That's fraud, compounded by the storm warnings making the property potentially unsafe for occupancy. Marisol's fingers flew across the keyboard. I can have the injunction paperwork ready by noon, but we need more for maximum impact. My phone rang Mabel Carter, practically shrieking with excitement. Nora, you need to see this. That woman just posted in the Gullhaven Community Facebook group, advertising last-minute weekend special at your house. She's offering 15% off because of the storm forecast. Screenshot everything, I instructed, and start documenting any HOA violations you observe this weekend. My next call was to Lieutenant Jordan Hale at North Shore County Code Enforcement. I'd worked with Jordan on several title disputes involving unpermitted additions. He was thorough, by the book, and had zero tolerance for rental scams after his own elderly mother had been victimized. Mrs. Whitaker, good to hear from you. Jordan's voice was warm but professional. What can code enforcement do for you? I explained the situation succinctly. His typing echoed through the phone as he took notes. Short-term rental without a business license, no TOT registration, no safety inspections, potentially exceeding occupancy limits. He catalogued. And you're saying there's a booking for tonight, despite the storm warning, through Sunday, according to the platform. That's reckless endangerment if they're not properly warning guests about evacuation routes. I can schedule an inspection, but I need probable cause to enter without notice. What if you received a complaint about noise and overcrowding at the property tonight? That would necessitate immediate response, Jordan confirmed, especially with weather conditions deteriorating. The pieces were falling into place. I met Marisol at the courthouse at 11:30 a.m., where she filed the emergency injunction with practiced efficiency. The clerk, recognizing the urgency, promised a judge would review it by 3 p.m. Now for the interesting part, Marisol said as we walked to her car. We need to document the actual transaction. I'll book tonight's stay under my assistant's name, different credit card, different email. We need to catch her in the act of accepting payment for a property she doesn't own. Won't she recognize you? I haven't posted photos online in years, and she's never met me. Plus, I'll be playing a very specific character, New Money from San Francisco, looking for an authentic coastal experience for my meditation retreat group. I couldn't help but smile. Marisol had minored in theatre before law school. We spent the afternoon preparing our performance. Marisol created a complete digital persona Instagram account with bought followers, Gmail address, even a fake wellness blog with backdated posts. She booked the Mariners Strand Luxe Retreat for Friday through Sunday at the storm discounted rate of $425 per night, plus cleaning fees. The Stayscape confirmation was instant, followed by an effusive message from Savannah R. OMG, so excited to host you. The house has amazing energy, perfect for meditation. Check-in is flexible. I'll meet you there at 4 p.m. with the key code. She's personally handling check-in, Marisol noted. That's direct involvement, not just passive platform hosting. Lieutenant Hale called at 2:45 p.m. Mrs. Whitaker, we've had several preemptive complaints about your property address for tonight. Seems the neighbors are concerned about safety during the storm. We'll be conducting welfare checks starting at 5 p.m. Mabel texted simultaneously, HOA emergency meeting scheduled for 4:30 p.m. at the clubhouse. Vote on immediate cease and desist for your property's violations. You should attend. I'll be there, I replied, though I planned to arrive fashionably late after Savannah had already committed to her fraud. At 3:50 p.m., the judge's clerk called. Emergency injunction granted, effective immediately. Sheriff's Department will serve it within 24 hours. Perfect, Marisol said, gathering her props, crystal singing bowls, sage bundles, and a yoga mat for authenticity. Time for the meditation retreat leader to check in to her weekend accommodation. I followed in my own car, parking a block away from my beach house. Through binoculars, Richard's old bird-watching pair, I watched Savannah's white Tesla pull up at 4:05 p.m. She was dressed in full influencer mode, flowing kimono, designer sandals, oversized sunglasses despite the gathering clouds. Marisol arrived in character, stepping out of her rented Prius in expensive athleisure wear, mala beads draped around her neck. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I watched Savannah's animated gestures, the way she posed beside my front door for what was definitely a social media photo, the moment she handed over the key code while accepting an envelope cash, surely, to avoid platform fees and taxes. My phone buzzed, Marisol. She took $1,200 cash for extras, including early check-in, late checkout, and spiritual cleansing of the space, all recorded. At 4:32 p.m., I walked into the HOA clubhouse meeting. Mabel had assembled the full board. plus several affected neighbours. The vote was unanimous, immediate cease and desist, $10,000 in accumulated fines, and authorization for legal action if rental activity continued past 6 p.m. tonight. We'll post notice immediately, Mabel declared, holding up bright orange violation stickers. Very visibly. The storm winds were picking up as I drove back to my vantage point. Savannah's Tesla was gone, but 2 more cars had arrived, the meditation retreat guests, presumably. Through the windows, I could see movement, luggage being hauled in, someone adjusting my carefully curated beach house aesthetic for their Instagram stories. At 5:15 p.m, Lieutenant Hale's code enforcement vehicle pulled up, followed by a fire department truck safety inspection protocol. I watched them knock, present credentials, begin their systematic documentation of violations. My phone lit up with Lucas calling. I let it go to voicemail. Mum? Savannah just got a call from the beach house. Something about inspectors. She's freaking out. She's heading there now. Please tell me you didn't. Oh, but I did. And we were just getting started. The genius of the plan crystallized as I watched Savannah's Tesla screech into the driveway at 5:43 p.m., nearly clipping Lieutenant Hale's vehicle. She emerged from her car in full panic mode, her influencer poise cracking as she faced 2 code enforcement officers, 3 firefighters, and Marisol, who was performatively waving sage smoke while asking about emergency exit procedures for her sound healing ceremony. I remained in my car, windows cracked to catch fragments of conversation carried by the increasingly violent wind. This is harassment. Savannah's voice pitched high. I have every right to be here. Lieutenant Hale's response was measured, professional. Ma'am, we're responding to safety concerns. This property is listed as a commercial rental, but I'm not finding any business license, TOT registration, or occupancy permits in our system. It's not commercial. It's sharing economy, peer-to-peer. Are you the property owner? Hale asked. I manage it. Savannah deflected. Then you'll have documentation showing owner authorization, insurance riders, and safety certificates. From my position. I could see her frantically scrolling through her phone, probably looking for the forged management agreement. The wind grabbed at her kimono, and she had to abandon the phone search to keep from being undressed by the weather. Marisol chose that moment to approach with theatrical concern. Is there a problem I just paid $1,500 for a wellness weekend? The listing said this was fully licensed and insured. You paid $1,500. One of the other guests, a young couple with matching anxiety, joined in. We paid $800 for 2 nights. The platform shows $425 per night. Another guest protested, pulling up their phone. Savannah's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine panic, calculation, forced smile. There's been a misunderstanding. Let me just call the owner. Please do, Lieutenant Hale said. We'll need to speak with them immediately. I watched her dial Lucas, pace in a tight circle, gesture wildly. Through my cracked window, I caught fragments. Your mother? Set me up. Can't reach her. At 6:02 p. Mabel's HOA brigade arrived in force, 3 board members armed with orange violation notices, cameras, and righteous suburban fury. They began documenting everything, the cars exceeding the property's designated parking spaces, the unauthorized lockbox, the commercial activity in a residential zone. 10,000 in fines already accumulated, Mabel announced loud enough for the entire beach to hear. and growing by $500 per hour, this unauthorized commercial activity continues. The weather was deteriorating rapidly. The National Weather Service had upgraded the storm warning, advising residents to secure property and avoid unnecessary travel. The meditation retreat guests were growing visibly nervous. "Should we leave?" the anxious couple asked Lieutenant Hale. "Is it safe?" "The property hasn't passed emergency occupancy inspection," he replied carefully. "I cannot advise you to stay in an uninspected short-term rental during severe weather warnings." Marisol jumped on this. "I want a full refund immediately. This is fraud. You advertised a licensed property." "All bookings are handled through the platform." Savannah stammered. "Refunds have to be—" "You took $1,200 in cash." Marisol held up her phone. "I have video of our entire transaction." The other guests immediately began demanding their money back, voices rising above the wind. Savannah backed against my front door, my door looking like a cornered animal. At 6:18 p.m. My phone rang. Lucas again. This time I answered. "Mom, where are you?" He sounded exhausted. "Home," I said truthfully. I was parked outside my property. After all. "Savannah says you orchestrated this whole thing. She says you hired actors, called inspectors, Mom. Is this true?" "I've done nothing but protect my property rights, sweetheart." "Has Savannah explained why she felt entitled to rent out my house?" Silence. Then, "She said you weren't using it. She said it was waste. She said—" "Did she mention the forged management agreement with your signature?" The silence stretched longer this time. In the background, I could hear Savannah shouting at someone, probably Marisol, who had escalated to threatening to call the police for fraud. "Mum." Lucas's voice was very small. "I didn't sign anything." "I know, sweetheart." "She used my DocuSign account. From when we bought her car, she showed me the revenue reports last week. $32,000. Mum. She already spent it on inventory for her boutique launch. $32,000. More than I'd estimated." My knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "Lucas, there's something you should know. The emergency injunction was granted at 3 p.m. If she continues rental operations past 6 p.m., which was 14 minutes ago, she's in contempt of court." "Mom, please. She's my wife. And I'm your mother. But more relevantly right now, I'm the legal owner of the property she's defrauding people over. This ends tonight. Lucas. Either she shuts it down immediately, or law enforcement will." Through the windshield, I watched Savannah suddenly freeze. Phone pressed to her ear, what must have been relaying my message. Her head whipped around, scanning the street, looking for me. I stepped out of my car. The wind hit immediately, salt-heavy and harsh, whipping my hair across my face. I walked toward my property with the measured pace I'd perfected during decades of closings, unhurried, inevitable, carrying a folder containing every document needed to end this charade. Savannah saw me coming. Her face went through several expressions: shock, rage, then a desperate attempt at her usual dismissive superiority. "Eleanor, thank God you're here. There's been a huge misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "is your belief that you could steal my property." I handed Lieutenant Hale the emergency injunction, the trust documents, and the certified deed. "I'm Eleanor Whitaker, the sole legal owner of this property. This woman has been operating an illegal short-term rental without my knowledge or consent." That's impossible, Savannah sputtered. Lucas agreed. To a forged document. I pulled out the management agreement with the forensic analysis notes. This signature is fraudulent. Lucas never authorized anything. Marisol stepped forward, dropping her meditation retreat character entirely. Marisol Grant, attorney representing Mrs. Whitaker. We have documentation of this evening's cash transaction for unauthorized rental of my client's property. We are prepared to file criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and conversion of property. The wind howled between us, spray from the increasingly violent waves reaching the deck. The meditation retreat guests were already heading to their cars, shouting about lawsuits and police reports. You planned this, Savannah hissed at me. You set me up. No, I replied calmly. You set yourself up when you decided my property was yours to monetize. I simply documented it. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of false calm that follows a storm's first wave. I'd insisted on a family meeting not at my house, but at the beach house itself at 10 where the evidence of Savannah's enterprise couldn't be ignored or minimized. Lucas arrived first, alone, looking like he'd aged 5 years overnight. He stood in the living room, taking in the changes, the cheap nautical decorations from Home Goods that clashed with Richard's authentic maritime collection. The industrial-strength lock on the linen closet, the laminated House Rules sign that reduced our family retreat to a list of checkout instructions. She moved Dad's ship's wheel, he said quietly, staring at the wall where it now hung off-center to accommodate a ring light mount. Among other things, I replied, pulling out my phone to show him the Stayscape reviews. Would you like to read what strangers have written about sleeping in your childhood bedroom? He waved it away, sinking into the couch now covered with a waterproof protector that crinkled under his weight. Mom, I swear I didn't know the extent, but you knew something. It wasn't a question. She said it was just occasional. Friends of friends. She said you'd never find out, that it was victimless. $32,000, Lucas. That's what she told you. Correct? He nodded miserably. She showed me the spreadsheets, professional projections for the next year. She was going to surprise you at Christmas with a check. Call it property management fees, retroactively. She said you'd be impressed by her business acumen. I almost laughed. The idea that I'd be impressed by theft, wrapped in a spreadsheet, was so fundamentally disconnected from reality that it bordered on delusional. Savannah arrived at 10:22 a.m., dressed down in designer athleisure, her usual armor of makeup replaced with strategic vulnerability, slightly smudged mascara, hair in a messy bun that probably took 40 minutes to perfect. She was performing contrite the way she performed everything else. Eleanor, she began, but I held up my hand. Let's discuss facts, not feelings. Marisol, who'd been waiting in the kitchen, emerged with a presentation folder. As of this morning, SR Coastal LLC has collected approximately $34,800 in rental income from this property. The Stayscape platform is holding another $2,200 in pending payouts, which have been frozen pending investigation. Investigation? Savannah's voice cracked. The platform takes fraud seriously. Marisol continued. When presented with evidence of unauthorized rental activity, they're obligated to investigate. Your account has been suspended, all future bookings cancelled, and the funds held until legal ownership is established. But I have bookings through New Year's people are flying in from Japan. Had bookings, I corrected. Lucas, Did you know she was accepting international reservations? My son's face went pale. International Savannah. The tax implications. It's fine, she snapped, then caught herself, forcing her voice back to sweetness. I mean, I was handling everything. I set aside 30% for taxes. Marisol and I exchanged glances. Show me, I said simply. What? Show me the tax reserve account. 30% of 34,000 is over $10,000. Where is it? Savannah's fingers twisted the massive engagement ring Lucas had depleted his savings to buy. It's allocated. Allocated where? The boutique inventory. But it's an investment. The returns will be gone. Lucas's voice was flat, defeated. You spent tax money on those sustainable hemp dresses nobody wants. They're not hemp. They're bamboo viscose. And the pre-sale numbers are very promising. Savannah. I cut through her spin. You've committed tax fraud on top of everything else. The IRS doesn't accept boutique inventory as payment. She turned to Lucas, tears now flowing freely, though I noticed they didn't disturb her mascara. Baby, help me. Your mother is trying to destroy me. This is probably some sick jealousy thing because I'm young and successful. Successful, I couldn't help myself. You're a parasite who attached yourself to my property because you couldn't generate actual success. Your Instagram has 3,000 bought followers and an engagement rate of less than 1%. Your boutique pre-sale numbers are your mother and her book club taking pity on you. Mum, Lucas warned. But I was past diplomacy. No, she needs to hear this. Savannah, you're not an entrepreneur. You're a thief with a ring light. You took my house, forged my son's signature, and endangered strangers during a storm warning for quick cash. That's not business. It's criminal. Savannah stood abruptly. I want a lawyer. Excellent idea, Marisol said cheerfully. You'll need one for the civil suit, and possibly the criminal charges, depending on whether Mrs. Whitaker chooses to pursue them. Criminal charges. Lucas looked between us. Mom, you can't. Forgery is a felony, Lucas, so is fraud over $10,000? I kept my voice steady, factual. But I'm willing to discuss alternatives. Savannah froze mid-storm out. Alternatives. I gestured to the dining table where I'd arranged the settlement documents Marisol had drawn up. Option 1. We pursue all legal remedies, criminal charges for forgery and fraud, civil suit for conversion and unjust enrichment. The boutique inventory gets seized as assets, your wages garnished, and yes, this goes on your record. Publicly. What's option 2? Her voice was barely a whisper. Complete cooperation. Transfer all rental revenues to my account within 72 hours. Dissolve SR Coastal LLC. Sign a confession of judgment for any shortfall. Remove every trace of my property from your social media. And never ever attempt anything like this again. That's extortion. That's generous, Marisol corrected. Option 1 includes jail time. Savannah looked to Lucas for support, but he was studying his father's ship's wheel with intense focus. Lucas, are you going to let her do this to me? You did this to yourself, he said quietly. And to us. Mom, what about the marriage? I met my son's eyes, saw the exhaustion there, the disappointment, the relief he was trying not to show. That's between you two. I'm only interested in recovering my property. Savannah laughed bitterly. Property. That's all you care about, isn't it? Not your son's happiness, not your family. My family. I stood, matching her energy. This house is my family. Every board, every window, every imperfection Richard refused to fix because he liked the character. You turned our memories into your marketing material. You made our grief into your revenue stream. The room went silent, except for the wind outside and the distant crash of waves. I want to see the boutique inventory, I said suddenly. What, why? Because I'm betting you can't produce receipts for $34,000 in wholesale purchases. Because I think you spent maybe half on inventory and the rest on yourself. That Botox isn't cheap. Neither is that new Tesla payment. Savannah's hand went unconsciously to her forehead, then dropped. You don't know anything. Transaction history, Lucas said suddenly, pulling out his phone. Our accounts are linked. Mum's right. 8,000 to SoCal Sustainable Fashion Wholesale, 4,000 to Bella Beauty Medispa, 3,800 to Tesla Financial. The rest. He scrolled, his face darkening. Restaurants, shopping, a $5,000 handbag from Savannah. What the hell is a Bottega Veneta? It's an investment piece. The storm hit Gullhaven at 7:43 p.m. Saturday, with the fury of something personal. I stood at my main house window, watching the palm trees bend to impossible angles, thinking about the strangers who should have been in my beach house tonight if I hadn't intervened. My phone buzzed with updates from my assembled team. Mabel had stationed herself at the HOA clubhouse with binoculars and a direct line to the sheriff's department. Lieutenant Hale had patrol cars scheduled to sweep Mariner's Strand every 2 hours. Marisol was at her office, monitoring Stayscape and documenting every attempt Savannah made to access the frozen funds. At 8:15 p.m, she called. You're going to want to see this? I drove through the increasingly violent weather to Marisol's office, where she had multiple screens open. Your daughter-in-law just tried to create a new listing under a different LLC Coastal Dreams Management. Same photos, different watermarks. She's doubling down. Tripling. Look. Marisol pulled up Instagram. She's hosting a storm party at the beach house, charging $50 a head for an exclusive experience. The live stream showed my living room transformed into a makeshift club furniture pushed aside. LED strips taped to the walls. People I'd never seen holding red cups and dancing to music that made my windows visible shake even through the phone screen. That's it, I said. We're going in. In this weather? The eye passes over in approximately 40 minutes. We move then. I called my team. Mabel practically vibrated with excitement. She'd been waiting for exactly this level of violation. Lieutenant Hale confirmed he could have units standing by. But it was the fourth call that mattered most. Lucas, your wife is hosting a party at the beach house during a hurricane. She said she was at her mother's. His voice was hollow. Check her Instagram. The silence stretched. Then, I'm coming with you. Lucas. Mom, I'm done. I'm done pretending this is normal. I'm done enabling her delusions. I'll meet you there. The storm's eye arrived at 9:21 p.m., bringing an eerie stillness that felt like the world holding its breath. Our convoy moved quickly. My car, Marisol's BMW, 2 patrol cars, Mabel in her Subaru with 3 HOA board members, and Lucas's Accord bringing up the rear. The beach house blazed with light. Cars packed the driveway and spilled onto the protected dune grass, another violation worth thousands in environmental fines. Music thundered from inside. Bass lines that Richard would have hated. Vibrations that shook the authentic stained glass transom he'd salvaged from a demolished church in Savannah. I didn't knock. I used my key, the original, not whatever app-controlled nonsense Savannah had installed. The scene inside stopped me cold. My home had become unrecognizable. Strangers sprawled across furniture covered in drink stains. Someone had set up a makeshift bar on Richard's hand-carved sideboard. A couple was making out against the wall where our family photos had hung, now replaced with neon beer signs. And in the center of it all, Savannah streamed herself on Instagram Live, narrating the epic storm party at the beach mansion to her followers. She saw me first. The phone wavered, the practiced smile cracking. "Hey everyone, we have some unexpected guests." "Party's over," Lieutenant Hale announced, badge visible. "This gathering violates multiple county ordinances, HOA regulations, and the current severe weather shelter-in-place order." The music cut abruptly. Dozens of faces turned toward us, confused, drunk, some recognizing the arrival of consequences. "Everyone out," I said, my voice carrying the authority of absolute ownership. "You have 5 minutes before arrests begin for trespassing." "You can't do this!" Savannah shrieked, her phone still recording. "This is my event. These people paid to attend an illegal gathering in a property you don't own during a hurricane warning." Marisol stepped forward. "That's fraud, reckless endangerment, and about 6 other violations I'll be happy to enumerate for the judge." The crowd began fleeing, grabbing phones and keys, stumbling toward exits. Several demanded refunds from Savannah, who stood frozen in the center of the chaos she'd created. Lucas walked past her without a word, beginning to collect beer cans from around his father's ship's wheel. "Lucas." Savannah grabbed his arm. Tell them you agreed to this." He shook her off. "I agreed to a marriage, not this. Not." He gestured at the destruction. "Dad built that sideboard in his workshop. It took him 3 months." I looked closer. Deep scratches scarred the surface, ring stains that would never come out. A corner chipped where someone had clearly stood on it. "That's it," I said quietly. "Marisol, we're pressing full charges." "No." Savannah lunged toward me, but Lieutenant Hale stepped between us. "Please, I'll pay it back. I'll fix everything." "With what?" Lucas laughed bitterly. "The boutique that doesn't exist, the influence you don't have. You maxed out the credit cards. Savannah, you drained our savings. You spent money that wasn't yours on a fantasy that you're some kind of mogul." The Instagram Live was still rolling. I could see the viewer count over 800 people watching Savannah's empire collapse in real time. "Turn it off," I told her. "This is my platform. My brand." I walked over and took the phone from her unresisting fingers, looked directly into the camera. "This woman has been illegally renting my property without permission. She forged documents, committed fraud, and endangered lives during a hurricane for profit. If you've booked with SR Coastal or Coastal Dreams Management, file for refunds immediately through your credit card company." Then I ended the stream. The silence was deafening. Outside, the eye was passing wind beginning to pick up again, the storm's second act approaching. "You've destroyed me," Savannah whispered. "My reputation? My business?" "You never had a business," I replied. "You had a scam running on borrowed time and stolen property." Mabel stepped forward with her clipboard. "Final HOA fine tally $18,500. Due within 30 days, or we initiate foreclosure proceedings." "She can't foreclose on what she doesn't own," I clarified. "But the fines transfer to any illegal operator." Lieutenant Hale checked his watch. "Ma'am, we need to clear the property. The storm's returning, and this structure needs to be secured." People filed out into the rising wind patrol officers, HOA board members, Marisol gathering her documentation. Lucas stood by the door, looking between his wife and mother. "Savannah, let's go," he said quietly. "We need to talk. Away from here." She turned to him, tears finally genuine. "You're leaving me?" It wasn't a question. "I'm leaving this," he corrected. "This version of you that I don't recognize. The person who would steal from my mother, risk people's lives, destroy everything my father built, literally and figuratively." The wind howled through the open door. I began checking windows, securing what I could of my vandalized home. "Mrs. Whitaker," Lieutenant Hale said, "we need to go, now." I nodded, grabbing Richard's ship's wheel off the wall. I wouldn't leave it for another night in this desecrated space. Lucas helped me carry it to my car as the first sheets of rain returned. Savannah stood on the porch, designer clothes soaking through, watching her audience disappear into the storm. The storm passed at 3:17 Sunday, leaving Gullhaven wrapped in that peculiar silence that follows violence. I hadn't slept instead. I'd spent the night assembling the final pieces of what Marisol had started calling the closing documents, though we both knew this was more eviction than sale. At 7 I stood in my beach house surveying the damage. The party had left scars everywhere. Cigarette burns on the coffee table Richard had made from reclaimed pier wood. Red wine stained into carpets we'd chosen together on our 20th anniversary. Scratches on the hardwood where someone had dragged furniture. The monetary damage was substantial, but it was the casual destruction of meaning that cut deepest. Lucas arrived at 7:30, carrying cleaning supplies and looking like he'd aged a decade overnight. "Mum, I'm so sorry. You should have done many things differently." I agreed, pulling on rubber gloves. "But you're here now." We worked in companionable silence, gathering beer cans and solo cups, documenting each damaged item. He paused at the sideboard, running his fingers over the deep gouges. "Dad would have hated this," he said quietly. "Dad would have handled it before it got this far." I replied, not unkindly. "He never would have let someone treat our property, our memories, as inventory." "Savannah's at her mother's," Lucas offered, apropos of nothing. "She's been calling 43 times since midnight. And I haven't answered. I went to a lawyer this morning, Jeremiah Chen from... I know Jeremiah. Good choice. Clean, efficient divorces, no drama." Lucas laughed bitterly. "Too late for no drama." At 8:45, the doorbell rang or tried to. Another casualty of the party. Someone had ripped the Ring camera off entirely, leaving exposed wires through the window. I saw Savannah standing on the porch, her mother beside her. Patricia Reed was everything Savannah pretended to be: actually wealthy, genuinely connected, impeccably dressed even at this hour. She looked at her daughter with the kind of disappointment that suggested this wasn't her first cleanup operation. "Let them in," I told Lucas. "Mum, this ends today, completely." I opened the door. Patricia spoke first, her tone crisp, professional. "Eleanor, I apologize for arriving unannounced. May we come in?" I stepped aside. Savannah couldn't meet my eyes, her usual swagger completely deflated. She looked smaller somehow, younger, like the facade had finally cracked beyond repair. Patricia surveyed the damage with a practiced eye. I've been briefed on the situation. Savannah has told me everything. She paused. Or rather, I've extracted everything, including what she didn't tell me. Mother, please, be quiet, Savannah. Patricia's voice could have frosted windows. You've done quite enough talking. Instagram Live during a hurricane. Have you completely lost your mind? She turned to me. I've brought a cashier's check for $40,000. That should cover the stolen revenue plus initial damages. I'll have my contractor assess the property tomorrow for repairs. My bill. The HOA fines will be paid by end of business Monday. I was rarely speechless, but Patricia Reed had managed it. Furthermore, she continued, producing a folder. Savannah will be signing this agreement. No contact with your property. No mention of it on social media. No attempts to monetize anything connected to your family. Violation triggers a $50,000 penalty per incident. This is unnecessary. Savannah started. What's unnecessary? Patricia cut her off. Is my 31-year-old daughter playing entrepreneur with stolen goods? Did you think I wouldn't find out I have Google alerts? Savannah, I saw that pathetic live stream. Half my book club saw it. The shame on Savannah's face was absolute. Marisol arrived at 9 a.m. sharp with the legal documentation. She reviewed Patricia's cashier's check and agreement, nodding approval. This covers the civil aspects. The criminal charges will be dropped, I said, surprising everyone, including myself. If and only if Savannah completes a financial crimes diversion program and returns every single item she purchased with the stolen money. The boutique inventory. Everything. The inventory, the handbag, the Botox gets to wear off naturally. Every penny accounted for and returned. Savannah's hand went to her forehead again. That's cruel. That's consequences. Patricia said coldly. You're lucky Eleanor isn't pressing charges that would end with your mugshot on the evening news. Lieutenant Hale arrived to supervise the lockbox removal and smart lock deactivation. The HOA board showed up to officially document the cessation of illegal rental activity. It felt like a closing. Everyone gathering to witness the official transfer of property back to its rightful state. Sign here, Marisol instructed, pointing to lines on various documents. Savannah's hand shook as she signed away any claim to the property, any right to the revenue, any possibility of appeal. And here, the no contact order. And here, the confession of judgment for any additional damages discovered. And finally, here, the agreement to delete all photos, listings, and marketing materials within 24 hours. With each signature, Savannah seemed to physically diminish. The influencer persona, the entrepreneur cosplay, the boss babe bravado, it all fell away, leaving just a young woman who'd confused Instagram engagement with actual achievement. Lucas. Savannah turned to her husband, mascara finally running. Can we talk, please? My son looked at her for a long moment. The divorce papers will be filed Monday. Jeremiah Chen will contact your attorney. You don't mean that. We can work through this. Couples therapy. You stole from my mother. You destroyed my father's memory. You forged my signature. His voice was steady, resolved. There's no working through that. Patricia gathered her daughter with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. We're leaving. Savannah. Get in the car. Now. At the door, Patricia turned back. Eleanor, I'm deeply sorry for this entire situation. I thought I'd raised her better than this. You raised her to want more, I replied. She just never learned the difference between earning and taking. They left in Patricia's Mercedes, Savannah staring back at the house, my house, one last time before they turned the corner. The cleaning continued through the afternoon. Lucas and I worked methodically, returning the space to something recognizable. At 4 p.m., I carefully rehung Richard's ship's wheel in its proper place, using a level to ensure it was perfectly straight. It still shows the damage, Lucas said, noting the scratches on the wall around it. Good, I replied. Some lessons should leave marks. Marisol called at 5:15 p.m. Stayscape released the frozen funds to your account. Also, Savannah's Instagram is gone, completely deleted. Her Coastal Living with Sav brand officially doesn't exist. I stood on my deck as the sun began setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that no Instagram filter could improve. The beach was littered with storm debris, but the house stood solid, reclaimed. Mine. Lucas joined me, carrying 2 cups of tea. What now? Now we fix what can be fixed. We honor what was damaged, and we make sure this never happens again. The prenup Jeremiah's drawing up for next time is ironclad, he said with a rueful smile. Next time. Maybe date someone who has their own property to monetize. We stood together, watching the waves reclaim the beach grain by grain, the eternal taking and giving of the tide. Tomorrow there would be contractors to call, repairs to oversee, the slow work of restoration. But tonight, my house was my own again, filled only with family and memory and the sound of the sea. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear, the kind of post-storm perfection that made Gullhaven's real estate prices justified. At 9 a.m. sharp, I stood in the county courthouse, watching Savannah surrender the last piece of her failed empire. The Bottega Veneta, please. Marisol held out her hand. Savannah clutched the handbag, soft leather the color of cream, probably worth more than most people's monthly rent. This is humiliating. This is restitution? I corrected. That bag cost $5,000 of stolen money. She placed it on the clerk's desk with the reverence of someone saying goodbye to a dream. Next came the boutique inventory boxes of sustainable fashion that had never sustained anything except her delusions. The Tesla key fob. The business credit cards she'd opened using the beach house as collateral address. Patricia Reed stood beside her daughter, documenting each returned item with her phone. For my records, she explained tersely. And my accountant. Lucas wasn't there. He'd filed the divorce papers at 8 a.m. and driven straight to his office, burying himself in code and sprint, planning his traditional escape from emotional complexity. But he'd texted me, "Thank you for ending it definitively. I never could have." Lieutenant Hale officially closed the code enforcement case at 9:45 a.m., stamping the documents with satisfied finality. Mrs. Whitaker, your property is cleared of all violations. Though I suggest upgrading those locks, the old brass ones are more reliable than smart locks anyway. Already scheduled, I replied. Along with a proper security system, old-fashioned keys and modern cameras, best of both worlds. Mabel from the HOA actually hugged me. You've done the entire community a service. We've had 3 other illegal rental attempts shut down voluntarily since Saturday night. Nobody wants to be the next Savannah Reed. The name had already become a cautionary tale in Gulhaven's social media groups, screenshots of her live stream meltdown circulating with warning labels about illegal rentals and property fraud. At 10:30 a.m., we convened in Marisol's office for the final accounting. Every penny traced, every item catalogued, every legal requirement satisfied. The Stayscape funds have been transferred, Marisol confirmed. $34,800 plus the $40,000 from Patricia Reed for damages. After legal fees and repairs, you'll net approximately $60,000. I don't want it, I said, surprising everyone. Set up a fund, the Richard Whittaker Memorial Fund for Property Law Education, scholarships for students studying title law, especially those interested in preventing elder property fraud. Marisol smiled. Richard would have loved that. Richard would have preferred his ship's wheel never got scratched, I replied. But he also believed in making something useful from damage. Savannah signed the last document, a formal apology to be posted on whatever social media she rebuilt, acknowledging her actions and accepting responsibility. No spin, no influencer language, just truth. I still don't understand, she said quietly, looking at me for the first time all morning. It was just sitting empty. I was creating value. You were stealing value, I corrected. Every memory in that house, every improvement Richard made, every family gathering, that's the value. You can't monetize meaning, Savannah. You can only cheapen it. Patricia stood, gathering her daughter with practiced efficiency. We're done here. Savannah will be spending the next year working in my foundation's accounting department, learning how actual businesses operate. Mother, would you prefer jail because Mrs. Whittaker can still press criminal charges for another? Patricia checked her watch. 2 years, given the fraud amount. They left without another word. Through the window, I watched Patricia march her daughter to the Mercedes. Savannah's influencer strut replaced with the shuffle of consequence. At noon, I stood in my beach house one final time before the contractors arrived. The space felt different, violated but not defeated. Lucas was there, having taken a long lunch, helping me move the fragile items to storage during repairs. Mum, he said, wrapping Richard's ship's wheel in bubble wrap. I need to tell you something. I waited. I knew. Not everything, but I knew she was doing something with the house. I chose not to look closer because the money was helping with her spending. I was a coward. You were a husband trying to avoid conflict, I said carefully. But yes, you were also a coward, and that stops now. It stopped Saturday night. He agreed. When I saw her filming while you stood there heartbroken over Dad's sideboard, that was unconscionable. The contractors arrived at 12:30 p.m. Patricia's team, as promised. Top-tier craftsmen who specialized in historical restoration. They'd have the place better than before, though never quite the same. 6 weeks, the foreman estimated. We'll match everything perfectly, down to the wood grain. As we locked up, I turned for one last look. The house stood solid against the afternoon sun, weathered but unbroken, like all of us. Perhaps. What now? Lucas asked. Now we move forward. You with your divorce and therapy? Yes, therapy? Non-negotiable? Me with the memorial fund and maybe actually using the beach house again. Not as a shrine, but as what Richard intended, a place for family. Even after all this, especially after all this, Savannah tried to turn it into a commodity. The best revenge is to fill it with exactly what she couldn't understand: genuine moments, real relationships, unmonetizable meaning. We drove back to my main house in comfortable silence. As we pulled in, Lucas's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and laughed. Actually laughed. The first genuine joy I'd heard from him in months. What? Jeremiah says Savannah's lawyer is trying to claim the Bottega bag was a premarital asset. He showed me the text. He's responded with her Instagram posts showing she bought it last month, geotagged at the store, captioned, "Thanks to my beach house business for this baby." Social media, I mused. Building cases against influencers since 2010. That evening, I sat on my porch, my actual porch, at my primary residence with a glass of wine and my laptop. The Richard Whittaker Memorial Fund was established, funded, and already receiving inquiries from the local law school. The beach house was being restored. My son was free from a marriage that had been slowly drowning him in someone else's ambitions. My phone rang. Marisol. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "Savannah's already trying to start a new venture. Patricia just called me. Furious. She's pitched a course on learning from failure, my property management journey, to some online education platform." I actually laughed. She's incorrigible. Patricia's cutting her off completely. Trust fund frozen, credit cards cancelled, apartment lease transferred back to Patricia's name. Savannah's about to learn what actual entrepreneurship means, starting from zero with no safety net. "Good," I said, and meant it. Maybe she'll actually build something real this time. As the sun set over Gullhaven, painting the sky in shades of justice and redemption, I closed my laptop and simply sat. Somewhere. My beach house was beginning its restoration. Somewhere. Lucas was signing papers that would free him from a mistake. Somewhere. Savannah was discovering that influence without substance is just noise. And here, on my porch, I held the deed to my property, both physical and metaphorical, firmly in my own hands. The house was mine. The victory was complete. And Richard's ship's wheel, when it was rehung, would point true north, once again, toward authenticity, toward family, toward the value that can't be listed on any platform. "This house and the right to decide belongs to me," I said to the evening air, repeating my words from that storm-lashed night. And this time, everyone understood exactly what that meant. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect across the miles. If you enjoyed this tale of property rights and sweet revenge, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Eleanor's situation? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next story.